folks, welcome to another episode of Natural Medic Adventures. I'm your host, Craig the Natural Medic. We try to, on this podcast YouTube channel, give you a good run for your money on items that will keep you happy, healthy, and safe in the backcountry. So let's get started. This week we're going to talk about your sleep system and the choices you might come across. So probably the most common one people have thought about or know about is the mummy bag. This is one I've had for a number of years. I think I picked it up from REI Outlet in about 2016. It is by a company called Mountain Smith, which probably a lot of you are familiar with. And this particular version is called the Antero, and it is rated to 35 degrees. Now, when you're looking at sleeping bag ratings, you have to think about what that means. There is no real definite standard for manufacturers to test their bags or quilts. We'll get to quilt in a little bit on. So you have to think about 35 degrees. Generally, if you're going to be in conditions that are 35 degrees, you're going to need a bag that is warmer than 35 degrees. So it's rated for 25 degrees or maybe even 20 degrees, depending on the manufacturer and how they test and rate their equipment. This one, though, actually is pretty accurate. I've slept in it right above freezing conditions and was very comfortable in it. And a mummy bag, if you're not familiar with it, has certain advantages, okay? Those advantages are, they are widely available. They are relatively inexpensive. This particular one, as you see in the stuff sack that it comes with, you don't want to store it in that. We'll talk about that toward the end of the video, how to store these things. You can see here it expands out into this nice size. I'm 6'2", and this bag fits me nicely. I'm not sure if this is the regular or long size, but you can see it is a mummy shape. So it has the bigger end here where the head is, where your head sticks out, and you have a drawstring cord where you can cinch that down when it gets cooler to hold in more heat. The idea is it keeps your body in this tight package that allows your body heat to radiate inside of it, and it keeps you warm. Now the trade-offs, of course, of being widespread as far as availability, being inexpensive, and being relatively familiar to a lot of people out there. Whether you're in the Boy Scouts or you're just browsing on REI, Amazon, wherever for gear, you're going to see a lot of different mummy bags out there. So the foot part is fully enclosed. So that keeps the maximum amount of heat inside the bag. That's the general design of that. So most of your mummy bags are not going to be very good, comfortable-wise, in warmer weather. So they're not adaptable. That's one thing we'll get to when we talk about quilts. But in colder weather, they work very well. I've slept in mummy bags pretty much my entire time I've been backpacking, which has been back in the 80s and 90s with the Boy Scouts, and then on as I became an adult and continued to pursue the hobby. And they work really well. Now the other trade-off with mummy bags, as I said, they are bulky and heavy. This is insulated with a synthetic insulation. I don't know for sure what that is. If I can find it out, I will put it on the screen here in the video during the editing process. But this particular one weighs in at about 3 pounds, actually 3 pounds 1 ounce. And you can see how big it was when it was packed up. So that's that. And it's a viable option. However, if you want to get the least expensive mummy bag out there, like some available maybe at Walmart or on the lower end at maybe Amazon, a lot of those are going to be way too bulky to put into your bag. So that's a trade-off there. And that bulk to weight ratio really doesn't, in my opinion, now that there's other options available, doesn't really offer that good of a trade-off. What alternative do you have? I came across this one, and I want to thank My Life Outdoors, Stephen, is the one that kind of brought this to my attention. This is a budget option quilt. This is not a custom or cottage manufacturer type of quilt, but what it is a pre-made quilt from a company called Featherstone. They're based in California, along with a lot of other people. Nowadays, they have their products, they're made in China. And they didn't send this to me. I bought this with my own money. But I slept in it last night for the first time in mid-40s degree weather, in a t-shirt and a pair of shorts and some fuzzy socks. And I was super toasty warm. Actually, I was a little bit too warm. But I was very comfortable, and I was very pleased with this purchase. Now this, unlike the cottage manufacturers, don't yell at me in the comments, it's not meant to be compared to those guys. I'm sure do excellent work, and they can custom fit you and design you a cot. There's a lot of different cottage manufacturers out there that make quilts, but this is not one of those. These guys are already pre-made. So with that in mind, it only comes in one color and only comes in two sizes, a regular size and a wide long size. I got the wide long because I'm a taller person. I'm 6'2", and I don't know how y'all are when you're sleeping in your regular bed, but I tend to toss and turn, at least initially, when I first get in there. And that's the same thing when I do when I'm out camping or backpacking or whatever. So this one weighs in at 2 pounds on the nose. So you're saving a pound already. As they say, the old adage in backpacking, if you worry about the ounces, the pounds will take care of themselves. So looking at the far end of it, so you probably see some differences here already from the mummy bag. It's basically like a big blanket. So you can cinch it up right there with a button. And it does have a drawstring, so you can cinch that up tighter around your face. The difference between a quilt, for those of you that are the uninitiated or maybe just don't know exactly what that is, basically a quilt is a sleeping bag with an open back. So we'll get to that in a minute, why that is important and what you have to do to compensate for that versus a mummy bag and how that works. But this particular one is insulated with down. Now down, if you've heard about it, is an insulation that is very lightweight. It's not very bulky, can be compressed very small, but generally down does not do very well when it gets wet. However, this particular down, and I'll get the bag here so I can read it directly so I'm not misquoting. This particular down, they have a comparison here on the screen. Hopefully you can see that. Regular down, when it gets wet, it loses its ability to loft. So therefore it doesn't insulate very well or at all. And it becomes actually dangerous sometimes because it's so soaked it doesn't insulate you at all. This particular down is treated with what's called Down Tech. And it's a treatment that they apply to the down as they build the bag, and it repels moisture. Now it doesn't keep all the moisture out, but it still allows it to insulate some while it is wet. So unlike regular down, this has a lot more capabilities when it gets wet as opposed to none when normal down gets wet. Now the material on this is very comfortable, it feels very good to the skin. And as you can see, I'll hold it up here, it has a lot of different straps you can snap or hitch or unhitch, as it were, throughout whatever climate you're in or whatever temperature you're in. Even the foot box, and I'll have a kind of a bleed into this, will open up so you can spread it out more. So if you want to adjust the temperature by opening it up, you can definitely do that. Now, the key with having a mummy bag, or especially in the case of a backpacking quilt, you need to have a good insulative pad to sleep on. The one that I chose for myself, you've seen this probably in other videos, is the Klymit Static V Insulated. I slept on this last night with the quilt on top of that. And then underneath it I had another foam pad I'll talk about in just a second. But this part takes place of the back of the mummy bag or sleeping bag on a quilt system, so that the idea is the mat is providing insulation and warmth to you, whereas in a normal mummy bag, the mummy bag back parts you're sleeping on is compressed. So the thought is, and research also backs this up, that whenever that is compressed, it doesn't provide any insulating value. So why not eliminate that and eliminate the weight by choosing a quilt. So that is a good option for you. Now, regardless if you're in a mummy bag or if you're in a quilt, you're going to need a good pad to sleep on for comfort. On to the days when we have to sleep on just a foam pad. Back in the Boy Scout days, I had one of those blue closed cell pads that I slept on when I was backpacking or camping, and I was fine with it. I was a kid. But nowadays, when I'm an adult, I want to sleep more comfortably, and you can do that with an insulated pad like the Klymit Static V or similar. And I usually put this type of pad. This is just a generic one I got on eBay. There's a bunch just like it on Amazon and other places on the web. But it provides a little more insulation, and it also protects your pad that you inflate from sharp objects like rocks and sticks and thorns, things like that you might have set your tent up on inadvertently. So it provides additional layer of protection and also provides a little more insulation. Now, another thing you might need for your sleep system is a pillow. This particular pillow right here I really enjoy. It's a pillow by Trekology. It's available on Amazon, and it's very comfortable. And you can inflate this so it becomes like this, so it's basically like a pillow at home. It really feels just like that. It has a strap on the back and a tacky material so it sticks to your pad and doesn't move around, so you don't have to chase it all night. And it will inflate and go into this little bag, and it weighs a few ounces. I'll put the amount of ounces on the screen here in the editing process. So, what about some other things you might consider? If you're wanting to keep your bag clean, whether it's a quilt or a mummy bag, now unfortunately right now they only have these available in a mummy style, but you can get any number of liners. This is one called the Chinook Pongi. It's made out of polyester, and it is a mummy shape. So either in your quilt or in your sleeping bag, you could put this in there to provide additional warmth, keep your bag clean, etc., etc. Provide a little more comfort to your setup. And they also have other liners available, a little more expensive, of course, as you can imagine. This one is by a company called Cocoon, and it is made out of silk. So it feels really nice to the skin, but also provides some additional warmth as well. Now, when you're storing your equipment, whatever you decide you want to go with, some companies do provide you a cotton bag or some kind of storage bag, because your stuff bag, so where the stuff bag went, for example, the stuff bag that came with the Featherstone Moondance quilt, it would not be something you would store it in long term. Now, while you're out, yeah, absolutely you can store it in there. But when you get home, air it out, and then you can put it in your bag like this. It's just a regular laundry bag I got from the dollar store. And that will allow it to breathe, allow it to not be compressed, so it still retains that loft and that insulated power when you take it back on the trail again. So, hopefully that helps you understand a little bit of the differences between a mummy bag and a backpacking quilt. If you have any questions, want to leave a comment, or want to talk about your sleep system, please do that below. If you're listening to this on the podcast, feel free to review us, send me an email, and I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I will see you out there on the trail. Thanks.